And here we go with the week 19 test. Problem number 1. The first section is all about functions, identifying things that are or are not functions. So problem number 1 is a function. We know that this is a function because any value we put in for x is going to get a unique value for y. Let's say, for example, that we made x equal to 0. We'd have y equals 15.6 minus 3.5 times 0, which would be 15.6 minus 0, which would be 15.6. So if we made a table, of x and y values, 0 for x would give us 15.6 for y. There's no other value that 0 for x can give us. Every time you put 0 in for x, you're going to get 15.6 for y. In the same way, if we went ahead and said, all right, let's make x equal to 1. So y would be 15.6 minus 3.5 times 1, so we're making y equal to 1 now, which would be 15.6 minus 3.5. 15.6 minus 3.5 is 12.1. And every time you put x with a value of 1, you're going to get 12.1. And since every x has a unique y, you can't have an x with two different y values. Since every x has a unique y, that is a function. Now, when you move over to the second one, number 2, this is not a function. This fails. I bet you have already written this down. This fails the vertical line test. What the vertical line test does is it matches up the x's with the y's they return. So this failed the vertical line test because when you have this x value, it can have two different y values. You can have that, and you can have that. So for x equals 2, if you had this as a table, here are the x's, here are the y's. When you have x equal to 2, well, you can have y equal to, looks like about negative 0.5. But you can also have x equal to 2 equal to 1 to about 3.5. Since you can have two different y's for the same x, it is not a function. Number 3, create a table that is a function. This is, you got to be careful when you read these. This wants a table that is a function. So to create a table that is a function, all you have to do is make sure that when you put an x in, it has a unique y. It doesn't have to repeat, but if it does repeat, it has to have the same y. Now you could have the same y with two different x's, so you could also have 3 gives you 3. It doesn't matter that this x gave you 3 as a y and this x gave you 3 as a y, as long as you didn't get a 1 and a 4, or a 2 and a 5, or a 3 and a 4. Each x has to have a unique y value. All right, so that's the identify a function. On to the graphing problem. So the first thing they did was they gave you some information. Truck carries weight that varies directly. So varies directly tells us that as you increase one thing, the other thing increases in a predictable way. And we know that it has 5 crates that weigh 600 pounds. The other thing that we know when we saw that varies directly, we know that it goes through the origin. Everything that varies directly goes through the origin. So that means we have 2 points. We have the point through the origin, and we have the points where 5 crates weigh 600 pounds. With 2 points, we can create a line. We can put a line through those 2 points, and that line now tells us what the slope is. That line represents the slope. So, graph of the line, there it is right over there. All right, what's the slope of the line? Well, slope is always equal to the change in y over the change in x. To figure out the change in y using these 2 points, y went from 0 to 600. So if you do the math on that, you ended up at 600. You started at 0. The change is 600. X went from 0 to 5, right? Y went from 0 to 600. There's that point. This point's at 0, 0. This point, let's just plot the point here. This point is at 5, 600. This point is at 0, 0. Remember, points always follow the form x then y. So this was a change from 0 to 600. So 600 take away 0 is 600. The x was a change from 0 to 5. So 5 take away 0 equals 5. And if we simplify this, 600 divided by 5 is 120. So the slope of this line is 120. That would be the answer to the question, what is the slope? For this particular line, what's the significance of the slope? Well, the significance of the slope is the weight of 1 crate. If that's true, and you don't have to believe me just because I'm the teacher, if that's true, then when we find where it crosses an x of 1, we should have a y of 120. That's this point right here, 120. Final question. If the truck has 11 crates, how much weight is it carrying? Well, we know that 1 crate is 120, so 11 crates would be 120 times 11. 0, 2, 1, placeholder, 0, 2, 1, 0, 2, 3, 1. It is carrying 1,320 pounds. That is our answer to D. All right, let's move on to the next page. So now I'm going to go through and just show you the answers, and I'll do some quick explanation, but you'll have that visual right there for you. So this is a problem where we would put down that dashed line. Notice we start out with a greater than or equal to sign. We end up greater than or equal to. We know that since this coefficient's positive, we're not going to be dividing by a negative, so the sign won't switch direction. First thing that we would do is we take away the 14 on each side. Over here, I'm going to show that as adding negative 14. Here, cancel out, so we're left with 6x, still greater than or equal to. Here, 28 negatives plus 14 negatives, those combine, they don't cancel. They end up as 42 negatives. We divide each side by 6. and we get the answer that you see in the box. Our x is greater than or equal to -7. Here's -7. There's our line. Number 5. Bob wants to spend at most. So when you see at most, that tells you it's going to be less than or equal to. He could spend less than 100, or he could spend 100, but he can't spend more. So he's going to spend less than or equal to $100. So this is the equation or the inequality we end up with. $15 per hour. Right there tells us $15 per hour. So the H is the number of hours plus a $25 maintenance fee. So there's the $25 maintenance fee. And when you do that work, similar to the way you did number 4, you'll end up with H is less than or equal to 5. In this case, when we graph it, we don't graph into the negatives. Bob cannot rent the scooter for negative number of hours. We also don't make the 0 part of the answer because it makes no sense. Bob would not go and say, hey, here's $25 maintenance fee. Oh, no, thanks. I'm not going to rent the scooter. I just wanted to give you the maintenance fee. That makes no sense. Bob's not an idiot. So 0 can't be an answer. All right, let's move on. Remember, if you have questions, bring them to class. Number 6. So this is a problem. We can solve it one of two ways. We can either distribute. Remember, if we distribute, that means we are doing rainbows. Or we could go ahead and divide both sides by 2.5, since 2.5 can go into 2.5, and it can go into -12.5. Let's solve it by distributing. We'd have 2.5 times x, which would give us 2.5x, and we would be taking away or adding the opposite of 2.5 times 8. So just in case you need to review, you're multiplying with decimals. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 2 is 16, and 4 more is 21 decimal place. Since there's 1 right there, there's going to be 1 there. Could you have done that without this? Well, probably. 2 times 8 is 16. Half of 8 is 4. 16 and 4 is that 20. So we're going to be taking away 20, and that equals -12.5. We're going to add the 20 on both sides, cancel that out, and when you add 20 over here, 0 pairs right there, we have 2.5x left, equals -12.5 plus +20. These are going to cancel out. That's going to leave you with +7.5. Divide everything by 2.5. Divide by 2.5. And x is equal to the 3 that we had up top. To check that, 2.5 times 3 minus 8 is 2.5 times -5. 2 times -5 is -10. Half of -5 is 2.5. Yes, that ends up being -12.5, which is what we were trying to equal all along. All right, on to number 7. This time, let's not distribute. This time, let's do the dividing part. So here we can take both sides of this and we can divide by 8. Remember, this is all one big term. This is 8 times the x minus 4. When we divide by 8, we create a big 1 right there. We're left with x minus 4. I don't really need that parentheses because I'm done with the piece on the outside. -80 divided by +8, -10. Add a 4 to both sides, Add a 4 to both sides. That cancels out. This is x, -10, +4, -6. Just to double check that, 8 times -6 plus -4 is 8 times -10. That is -80. We needed -80. Happy days, happy days. Number 8, Mrs. Smith bought 4 boxes of melons. That's where we get that 4. Each box had 2 watermelons. There's the 2. And some number of honeydew melons. That's the x. You could solve this one either by dividing both sides by 4 or distributing. In either case, I think you know how to do that part. You're going to run it the same way you did number 7. And to the last part of the test, here we go. So now we have a 2-step equation. Remember, we are thinking about having that in the middle. It's going to run right through our answer. We are going to go ahead and take away 3x from this and take away 3x from that. That's going to be a nice big 0 pair, leaving us with -11. 7x's take away 3x's are 4x's minus 35. I'm going to go ahead and add 35 right here, because adding 35 is the opposite of subtracting 35, so I get the canceling that I want. I have to add 35 here as well. 11 negatives plus 35 positives are 24 positives after things cancel out. They equal 4x's. Divide and divide. Big one right there. 24 divided by 4 is 6. 1 times x is x. There's your answer. Checking that work, you would have 3 times 6 minus 11. Does that equal 7 times 6 minus 35? I should have put a 6 right in that spot. Let me squeeze that in now. 7 times 6 minus 35. Well, we've got 18, take away 11. That looks like 7. We have 42, take away 35. Also looks like 7. Yay for us. All right. Mike's name gets used a lot here. I'm a pretty busy guy. I planted 2 plants in my garden. One plant is 17 inches tall. Let me get some space to work here on my problem. One plant is 17 inches tall, and it grows 3 inches per year. The other plant starts out shorter, 9 inches tall, but it's going to grow 5 inches per year. Question is, how many years before those plants are the same height? So this is probably getting pretty normal by now. Let's take away the 3y on both sides. We always cancel out the smaller number of variables. That gets all the variables off one side. Then cancel out the ones, or the non-variables. That gets the y by itself. 17 minus 9, 8. These canceled out. 9 0 pairs right there. 2y. Divide by the, can you remember the name? Starts with the C. If you said coefficient, yay for you. Divide by the coefficient. That gives us a big 1. and 4 is equal to y. In 4 years, the two plants will be the same height. I almost stopped the video, and then I realized that didn't discuss the bottom problem for those of you that worked it out. So Haley took the amount of money she earned. Y is the money she earned for the number of days she worked. X is the days she worked. The line went through the origin and to the point 1, 1, 10. So that tells us this is the days she worked. This is the money she earned. The change then was a change of 110 over 1, which is 110. That is, wait for it, that's the slope. So is the y-intercept 110? No. What's the y-intercept? Hopefully you said 0. Remember, it went through the origin. Passes through the origin. Origin 0, 0. So the y-intercept was 0. Haley worked 110 days. Haley didn't work 110 days. Haley worked 1 day. The slope of the graph is 1. No, the slope of the graph isn't 1. The slope of the graph is 110. What does that tell us? Why is it significant? It's significant because it tells us what Haley earned per day. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. So when you come to class, bring questions if you've got them, and we will talk about this some more.